What's up, everybody? As a leader of an organization that's focused on family engagement, it's only right that I start out with a shout out to my parents. My dad is a Chilean playwright. He was taken as a political prisoner in the 70s while directing a play in protest of Pinochet, the dictator, which went over about as well as you'd expect it to. After years of being tortured and held in prison, he was luckier than many to make it out alive when he was exiled to Paris, which is where he met my mom. My mom is the youngest of 12 siblings in Puerto Rico. She was the first in her family to go to college, after which she won a scholarship to do graduate school at the Sorbonne in Paris. The two of them met at a theater festival where my dad pretended that he had the perfect role for my mom. She pretended that she was an actress. And they formed a group that traveled the world performing social justice theater. My sister was born in Colombia. I popped out in the Netherlands. Eventually, we hunkered down with my mom's family in Puerto Rico before my parents made the decision to immigrate to the US so that my sister and I could have access to better educational opportunities, even though it meant that they had to give up their own theater dreams. Growing up in a home that was short on money but long on ambition taught me two things that are at the heart of my work. One is that a child's education involves much more than just their schooling. And the second is that parents' love for their children is the single greatest and most underutilized natural resource. So after graduating from Harvard in 2009, I joined an organization called Teach for America and began teaching as a first grade teacher in one of Philadelphia's most impoverished neighborhoods. It was a super Puerto Rican neighborhood, and in my students, I saw myself, and in their families, I saw my own. In the classroom, I was bowled over by the fact that it took until November 28th, I won't forget the day, 83 days into the school year, for my kids' reading levels to finally catch up to where they had been before the summer. These are my first graders the day it happened: Karena, Maya, Saniyah, Carlos, and Travis. I asked other teachers in my school what was going on, and they all said in this really matter-of-fact way, "That's just the summer slide." As if it were some kind of law of nature that growing up poor, for every 2 steps forward you take during the academic year, you'll take a step back during the summer. So a couple slides got cut out, but that's all right. I dug into the research and found that across low-income communities, there's a 3-month regression in reading skills every summer. And that adds up year after year to the point that 2/3 of the achievement gap we see in high school is attributable to summer learning loss in elementary school. But what none of the research could answer for me is, why are those losses unique to low-income communities? The kids in wealthier suburbs had every bit as long a summer vacation as my students, and they weren't going backwards. What's the difference? Over time, I realized that summer learning loss is symptomatic of a deeper challenge, which is that low-income parents in America have largely been left out of the process of educating their kids. And despite the fact that children spend 75% of their waking hours at home, our school system does shockingly little to capture educational value from that time for low-income kids. So that, for me, was a light bulb that went off that led me to found Springboard Collaborative 4 years ago with the mission of closing the literacy gap by coaching teachers, training parents, and cultivating reading habits so that kids have the requisite skills to access life opportunities. So our primary offering has been an intensive 5-week summer program that combines daily reading instruction for pre-K through 3rd graders, weekly workshops training parents to teach reading at home, just as my parents had done for my sister and I, and an incentive structure that glues it all together, through which we award learning tools to families, from books to tablets, in proportion to their kids' reading progress. So we started super small 4 years ago with 40 kids. Since then, we've been able to grow to over 3,100 kids that we served last summer in Philadelphia, out in California, and in Washington, D.C. And what's been exciting about that is that kids are not only avoiding the typical 3-month reading regression, but they're replacing it with over a 3-month reading gain. So they're coming back to school in September more than 6 months ahead of where they otherwise could have been. And it doesn't happen because we're finding some kind of superstar teachers to work magic during the summer. Our model's about helping schools get more from the people and the assets that they already have. So in each of our school partners, we train the teachers that are already there to effectively engage the families of their struggling readers in order to accomplish more together than any of them had been able to independently. Here's another way of looking at that. For each bar represents a grade level, kindergarten, first, second, and third. The light blue is their reading achievement coming into the program. Those blue lines show grade level expectations at the end of kindergarten, where they should be by first grade, second grade, third grade. The dark blue represents the progress that they made over the course of programming. And what you'll see is, on average, in just 5 weeks, we were able to shrink the gap between where kids were and where they were expected to be by more than half. By training parents and teachers to collaborate, Springboard puts kids on a path that fully closes the reading achievement gap by 4th grade. In a nation that uses 4th grade reading scores to plan prisons, that changes everything. So over time, we've also been able to learn more about what our kids need. And we're seeing that in every school, there's a bell curve of readers where the bottom quartile of kids are coming to us so far behind already that there's really no summer gain that's going to be enough to fully close the gap for them. So those kids were our motivation for building Springboard after school. It's essentially a double dose of everything that we know that works well during the summer to accelerate their progress during the academic year. For the middle 2 quartiles of readers, that 3.5 month gain is enough to keep them on track to where they need to be. And then for the top quartile of readers, those are kids that are making enough progress during the year that they're not being targeted for intensive summer remediation. And frankly, after participating in Springboard once or twice, many of the students that were formerly struggling readers have moved themselves into that category. For those families, we're building Springboard at Home. It's a home literacy app that will help families to sustain the progress they've made in a lighter touch, lower cost way. And finally, because we're training the people from within the school to do this on their own, it raises a possibility of building some lasting internal capacity. We want kids and families to make progress not just during programming, but also to develop some lasting habits. So for the first time this past January, we were able to take on a follow-up study where we found that teachers were able to maintain the habits that they'd built around using data to drive their instruction and effectively engaging parents. And just as excitingly, we found that families were able to maintain their habits of reading together with their child at home and asking questions before, during, and after. That's my mom on the left, sending me to my first day of school 20 years ago. On the right, a Springboard mother was doing the same last year. In their eyes, you'll see the same timeless expression of unconditional love, of soaring aspirations, and of unwavering commitment. The children we see in school don't exist in a vacuum. Their families send them every morning, and their families receive them every afternoon. These are the people that know their children best, that love them for a lifetime, and that have the most at stake. It took a long time for the education field to embrace the idea that all children can learn. It is Springboard's ambition and our charge to prove that all parents can teach. Thank you so much.